54 years ago in 1957. His arraignment is scheduled for today. Jack Daniel McCullough was in Illinois yesterday as the remains of 7-year-old Maria Ridolph were unearthed.
Imagine living with a secret so dark, so heavy, that it haunts every waking moment of your life for decades. Now imagine that secret is murder. In 1957, a 7-year-old girl named Maria Ridolph vanished from a quiet street corner in Sycamore, Illinois, while playing in the snow with her best friend. Her disappearance would become one of America's oldest cold cases, tormenting a small town and destroying countless lives in its wake. For over 50 years, her family waited for answers that seemed like they would never come. But in 2008, something extraordinary happened. A dying woman made a confession that would finally bring closure to one of the longest, unsolved murder cases in American history. What she revealed on her deathbed would shock investigators, vindicate a grieving family, and prove that sometimes the truth really does come out, no matter how much time has passed. It was December 3, 1957, just weeks before Christmas. 7-year-old Maria Ridolph and her friend Kathy Sigmund were playing at the corner of Archie Place and Center Cross Street in Sycamore, Illinois. The girls were enjoying the freshly fallen snow, their laughter echoing through the crisp winter air. A young man approached them, calling himself Johnny. He was friendly, charming even, and he offered them a piggyback ride. Kathy ran home to get her mittens, leaving Maria alone with the stranger. When she returned just minutes later, both Maria and Johnny had vanished without a trace. The small Midwestern town of Sycamore was thrown into chaos. Within hours, hundreds of volunteers flooded the streets, searching desperately for the missing girl. The FBI joined the investigation, making it one of the largest missing persons cases of the era. Thousands of tips poured in from across the country. Every lead was followed, every possibility explored, but Maria remained missing. The case grew cold, and hope began to fade. 5 months later, in April 1958, a grim discovery was made. A man walking through a forest preserve about 100 miles away from Sycamore stumbled upon the decomposed remains of a small child. It was Maria Ridolph. The medical examiner determined she had been stabbed to death. Her family's worst fears had been confirmed, but the identity of her killer remained a mystery. The investigation continued for years, but despite the FBI's best efforts and countless hours of detective work, no arrests were made. The case file grew thick with dead ends and false leads. Generations of investigators tried and failed to solve the murder. As the decades passed, it seemed certain that Maria's killer would never be brought to justice. The case became a ghost story in Sycamore, a tragic reminder of innocence lost and justice denied. But cold cases never truly close. They wait sometimes for decades for that one crucial piece of information that can change everything. In this case, that information would come from the most unexpected source imaginable. In 2008, a woman named Janet Tessier was dying of terminal cancer in a nursing home. As death approached, she felt compelled to unburden herself of a terrible secret she had carried for half a century. She called the Illinois State Police and told them something that would reopen one of the state's oldest murder investigations. Janet revealed that in 1957, her former husband, John Tessier, had come home on the night of December 3 in an agitated state. She said he had been acting strangely and seemed deeply disturbed. More significantly, she told police that John matched the description of Johnny, the mysterious man who had approached Maria and Kathy on that fateful evening. John Tessier had since changed his name to Jack McCullough. He was now 72 years old and living in Seattle, Washington. Investigators immediately began re-examining every piece of evidence from 1957 through the lens of this new information. What they discovered was stunning. Jack McCullough had been 18 years old in 1957 and lived just blocks away from where Maria was abducted. His physical appearance matched the description Kathy Sigmund had given police all those years ago. Even more damning, McCullough had provided an alibi claiming he was 40 miles away in Rockford, Illinois, at the time of the abduction, enlisting in the Air Force. But when investigators dug deeper into military records, they found significant inconsistencies in his timeline. The evidence suggested he could have been in Sycamore when Maria disappeared. Detectives also uncovered disturbing patterns in McCullough's past. He had a history of inappropriate behavior toward young girls. Former neighbors and acquaintances came forward with stories about his unsettling conduct around children in the late 1950s. One woman reported that McCullough had attempted to lure her into his car when she was a child, using tactics remarkably similar to those used on Maria and Kathy. Another witness remembered seeing McCullough near the corner where Maria vanished on the night she disappeared. Piece by piece, Investigators built a case that had eluded law enforcement for over 5 decades. The deathbed confession from Janet Tessier had opened a floodgate of evidence that had been sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone to connect the dots. In July 2011, Jack McCullough was arrested in Seattle and extradited to Illinois to face charges for the murder of Maria Ridolf. The arrest made national headlines. How could a man evade justice for 54 years only to be caught because of his ex-wife's deathbed confession? The trial began in September 2012, and the entire nation watched as prosecutors laid out their case. Kathy Sigmund, now in her 60s, testified about that terrible night, identifying McCullough as the man she knew as Johnny. Other witnesses provided testimony about McCullough's suspicious behavior and his presence in Sycamore on December 3. The prosecution argued that McCullough had abducted Maria, taken her to a remote location, murdered her, and then disposed of her body in the forest preserve where it was eventually found. McCullough maintained his innocence throughout the trial, insisting that his alibi was solid and that he had been in Rockford when Maria disappeared. His defense team argued that the case was built on circumstantial evidence and unreliable memories from events that had occurred more than half a century earlier. They claimed that Janet Tessier's deathbed confession was motivated by bitterness from a failed marriage rather than genuine knowledge of a crime. But the jury saw things differently. After just 2 hours of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict. Jack McCullough was convicted of kidnapping and murder and sentenced to life in prison. For the Ridolf family, it was a moment of bittersweet relief. After 55 years of waiting, wondering, and grieving, they finally had justice for Maria. The case appeared closed, but there was one final twist in this already extraordinary story. In 2016, new prosecutors reviewed the case and concluded that the evidence against McCullough was not as strong as originally believed. They discovered that his alibi had been more credible than the original prosecutors had acknowledged, and they found exculpatory evidence that had not been properly presented at trial. In April 2016, McCullough's conviction was overturned, and all charges were dismissed. He walked out of prison a free man after serving nearly 5 years. The dismissal devastated the Ridolf family and shocked the community that had finally believed justice had been served. Today, the murder of Maria Ridolf remains officially unsolved once again. The case stands as a haunting reminder of how complicated cold cases can be, how memories can deceive us, and how the pursuit of justice can sometimes lead us down the wrong path even with the best intentions. Janet Tessier's deathbed confession, which initially seemed like the breakthrough that would finally solve one of America's oldest cold cases, ultimately led to a conviction that was later overturned. Whether Jack McCullough was truly innocent or whether he evaded justice twice remains a matter of fierce debate among investigators, legal experts, and true crime followers. What we do know is that somewhere out there, if McCullough was not the killer, the truth about what happened to Maria Ridolf on that snowy December evening in 1957 still waits to be discovered. Her case reminds us that even when confessions come and convictions are secured, the path to truth is never as simple as we hope it will be. Maria's story has touched millions of people over the decades, representing not just one tragedy, but the countless unsolved cases that haunt families and communities across America. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the complexity of justice and the importance of never giving up on finding the truth, then please subscribe to our channel. We bring you the most compelling true crime stories, cold case investigations, and mysteries that have shaped our world. Hit that like button to help us reach more people who are passionate about these stories, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. The truth matters, and together, we can keep these stories alive and honor the memories of those who deserve justice. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next investigation.